Welcome back to another episode of the Hobby Chop Podcast, the podcast for the people. This week, again, the dynamic duo. You got me, Big Gen, and my man Zip. Zip, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Let's get into this. I think we have some fun things to talk about. I'm excited.
Are we going to charge right into last night's game, or are we going to leave that aside?
I have my hat backwards. Also, as of now, it came out that Jason Tatum had successful Achilles surgery. So that's terrible. It's probably missing
that's not only the off season, but that's next season too, right?
Yeah,
that's what they were saying.
It's probably missing next season, maybe back in next April. So
does your team go into like a soft rebuild mode now? I mean, what are they without their star player for next season? I mean, I don't know how they.
There were already talks about like basically trying to get under like the second apron, or like just basically to save money. So that was going to be Porzingis or Drew. I mean, Jaylen Brown makes an absurd amount of money. I don't know. I don't think they'd move him, but if they did, I would hope it could be for like a better piece and put together a crazy trade option. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But in Brad Stevens, we trust. He's created quite a team, and you have your first team All-NBA superstar, go down. What are you gonna do?
Never easy.
What are you gonna do? So I just hope a speedy recovery, and I hope he comes back stronger, hopefully. And yeah.
And my two picks are still going strong, looking good.
The Knicks and the Timberwolves. Look at that. Yeah. that Steph Curry injury makes the Timberwolves look fantastic right now for your picks. I know. I honestly, when like we did those picks and Tyler picked the Nuggets and the Knicks, I was like, are you just trying to like make good content or what is this? Sure enough, it's like the Infinity War when Doctor Strange tells Iron Man there's like this 1 in whatever billion chance of them getting back to normal, and that's what you guys are picking right now. I want the safe option, and it's not safe.
So that's a good segue into. So I know the NBA.
It is a great segue. You're right. Yeah, did not try to do that.
Works off a draft, right?
Yeah.
I not off the draft, but off a lottery system. Never watched it. Never really got involved in any of it. And I spoke with you. I was golfing last night while you were messaging me how crazy this was. So today I watched this because I knew we would probably talk about it, and I have some serious questions.
Okay, I'm not an expert, but I'll see if I can answer.
I have some serious questions. I felt like I was watching a bad Whatnot stream, or I was at the casino, and they're like, yeah, no, nobody knows what's in these envelopes. Just let me go rip one open. And I'm like, is this for real? Are these people really doing this? Because I've been listening. I listen to these fantasy shows on the radio, and everybody was saying this is rigged. It's this, it's that. So I had no idea really what they were talking about, how it could be rigged. And I'm thinking to myself, well, people get upset when their teams don't get what they want and make excuses. But when I went home and watched this, I was like, oh man, I see why everyone thinks it's rigged.
Okay. Yeah, because when you watch it, they kind of talk about the percentages, right?
Well, they talk about the percentage, but there's this guy sitting up there with a pile of envelopes. It
was anticlimactic that way. I don't really remember it going that way. But regardless, like you have the worst 3 teams. It was the Wizards, the Hornets, and the Jazz, who each had a 14% chance at the first overall pick. Not only did they not get the first overall pick, the highest of them was the 4th overall pick. Okay. Yeah. So then you have the Dallas Mavericks at number 1 with a 1.8% chance. And even crazier than that, and I forget that it was them and another team that had like the same record. So they literally coin flipped to get the better position. So Dallas Mavericks hit this crazy parlay to get Cooper Flag. You have the 50% and then times the 1.8%. I'm not the math guy. I wish Tyler was here. He would be able to it's crazy, right? Like it's crazy odds. And also it comes off the whole storyline of the Mavericks basically trading away Luka to a power franchise of the Lakers, right? Like, and there were conspiracies that the NBA wanted Luka in LA to create, because LeBron's leaving LA and they want this. And if you listen to the Bill Simmons podcast, he loves getting in the NBA conspiracies. And I don't know how real or not they are, but for that to happen and then for the Mavericks to be handed Cooper Flag, a generational prospect, is just unbelievable.
Now, well, and again, I've done this with football every year. I've never done it with NBA. But is there the possibility that there's a price that another team that these Mavericks will accept, that another team would pay, that will get that first round pick? I mean, is that first round pick for sale? Are they listening, or is it just we're taking this guy and we're not looking back?
Well, I would say no, but Nico Harrison just traded away Luka for what a lot of people felt was the worst trade in sports history. Definitely the worst trade in NBA history. A lot of people feel that way. So you never know.
Well, they obviously got rewarded for it.
But like that's chance if you want to believe it's chance, or it's collusion with the NBA. Whatever you want. I'm not going to say I think one thing or another, but like regardless of how you spin it, it's not like it wasn't realistic for it to happen, but it happened. Just like these Knicks and Timberwolves, or Knicks and Nuggets that are like that. Yeah. It's just crazy odds. So it's happened. And then you have the Spurs at 2 and the 76ers at 3. So you have these 3 teams that are really good to get these 3 picks, and they're 3 really good picks, right? Like the projection right now is Flag, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey. So three great players. And I heard a comp for Dylan Harper was Cade Cunningham, who was amazing this year, had a breakout season, former number 1 overall pick. So like it's a strong draft, and like you go throughout it, like we don't have to get into it, but it's a strong draft year. So like the top 3 picks are big, and none of the top 3 picks were the top 3 quote unquote deserving teams of the 3 worst teams. So it's kind of crazy. But with that being said, would the Mavs trade away? I don't know, maybe. But the thing I'm curious about is if that was to happen, it's basically the Spurs deciding a few things. Victor Wembanyama is 21 years old. Cooper Flag is 19. Okay. The Spurs have a load of draft picks and a load of amazing young talent, right? Like they just had the rookie. They had the last 2. Victor Wembanyama is untouchable. Like let's just like obvious, untouchable. Castle just won Rookie of the Year. They have Vassell. They just had De'Aaron Fox, who they traded for, but depending on what piece they get, could he be in the mix? Maybe. And they have a slew of other young talent. Do they make a crate? They also have the 14th overall pick in the first round. Do they go those 2 picks, one or 2 of their pieces not named Victor Wembanyama, to try to trade up for Flag, and then you build with Flag and Wembanyama at 19 and 21? Like that's insane, right?
Yeah.
And you have them both on the rookie contracts for whatever. Or do they go with an established vet like Giannis? Because the Bucks have like no picks because they traded them all away to get Dame, and Dame's been hurt, and it's been a nightmare.
See,
So you have those factors, and it's just like, do they want to do the slow build, or do they just want to try to maximize their championship window with Wemby? But I don't know what's better or worse. I don't
that's the problem of trading a lot of draft picks away, and a lot of capital away, and to a player that you think is going to be, play at a certain level, and then they come in and they're injured, or it doesn't add up. I mean, look at Cleveland with Deshaun Watson, right? I know I'm going back to football, but I mean, they just spent so much money on this guy, and it's just been an absolute bust. And I'm not saying like that's what flag is, but you never know. Like anything could happen on something like that. So I think it's tough for these teams to, put a lot out there with somewhat of an unknown.
Yeah.
Right?
Also, the development is slower in the NBA than it is the NFL. Like you see guys in the NFL reach the Super Bowl at a younger age than like the main stars are going to reach in the NBA. In the NBA, it almost seems like it's a 6 or 7 year development process for them to really crack the finals for the first time.
Yeah.
And
that's no good. That's no good for the hobby market.
Right. But however, Victor Wembanyama, if he wasn't hurt this year, he was going to be probably a unanimous defensive player of the year and maybe a second team all NBA guy at 21 years old. Like you have these anomalies that are just undeniable. Yep. And you pair him up with a guy like Flag who's going to develop. It's just like, if I'm the Spurs, like, would I rather pay a ransom for Giannis, who's 30, not like he still has 4 or 5 years of just prime Giannis, which should not be taken for granted, right? Or you have Flag where you don't know what the upside is, but you know it's really high too. And you have him for maybe longer. Mm-hmm. And you have him and Wemby to the point where you put in this investment and then you have like maybe a decade of just it's tough, Ken. Like it's really tough. And then it's also, do the Mavericks even want to entertain that too? Because then they get Cooper Flag, and then they have Anthony Davis and Kyrie and Klay Thompson, who are towards the end of their career, who could cultivate Cooper Flag, and then they continue to build around Cooper Flag for years to come. So I don't know. It's a lot to take into.
What does that do for the card market next year? So I know this year is NBA, like everybody's, nobody's really chasing anybody in this year, and I know there's a question coming up later too on that. Yep. But what does this do for next year? I mean, of course, everybody's going to chase Flag, but are any of these other rookies going to be these, second, third, fourth round picks? I mean, first round, second, third, and fourth pick. Are they going to be chaseable, or are they going to be more developmental players that you're going to have to hold on to their cards so that and see what happens? Any idea on that?
I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm an expert, but I know the top 3 guys are going to be studs. Like, you're going to have Flag, Ace Bailey, and Dylan Harper, who are going to be studs. Like, those are going to be guys you're going to want. And
so they'll be instant impact guys. These guys are going to their talent. They're going to be able to get out there and start playing right away.
And if it stays true to 1, 2, 3, they're landing in good spots. Dallas.
See, that's the only difference with all that too. See, with the NFL, unless those picks are trade away, right? And I know I'm bouncing back to this again, but it's usually the worst team has the best pick, right? So,
right,
you get a guy that may go to the worst team, right? And he may be hoping, I hope they trade that pick. Hopefully I'll go to a solid team, and we could be, competing at a higher level, right? Whereas this here, the top 3 picks are all going to teams that are somewhat contenders, right?
Guess what? It might be better for the hobby that way too, if you want to look at it that way, right? Yeah. Like imagine if Cam Ward wasn't going to Tennessee. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know who's like a team that would need a quarterback and they could be relevant, like, because Tennessee is not going to be relevant, right? Like, that's not crazy to say. Like, I don't know. Imagine he was able to go to a place that just needed a plug and play quarterback.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and I would argue it's better for the hobby and for the league, because does not reward tanking as much. Right? Like you tank for this guy, and
Yeah.
if you were the best tanker by percentages, you're getting the 4th pick. Congrats. So obviously it's deterred that somewhat, which I think is valuable in, as we're talking about conspiracy and collusion with the NBA. It's almost like what, like it's like trying to detract or like defect that, like
Yeah.
so I don't know.
So, and it's interesting too. Is it coincidence that the NBA and the NFL seem to flip flop, for good years for prospecting on players or chasing players?
I don't know because I know for like there's definitely people who overlap with NFL and NBA,
Mhm.
but I really couldn't tell you if it's good or bad. I would just say it's always good to have some sort of consistency of,
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's good for the hobby, right?
right?
I mean, because people out there, I mean, everybody's collecting something, right? So you have people that chase more football than basketball, and maybe they're chasing more football because those are the guys to chase right
Yeah.
now. But then you get into a year where it's basketball, and they're like, "Oh, finally, I get to chase some basketball guys," right?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
where
For sure.
someone like me is like, this may bring me a little closer. I did not jump on the Wembyama train, right? When he was coming, I stayed away from that. I never owned any of his cards, right? Because I like to stay in the lane that I know, right? And but who knows? Next year, it may be a time for me to say, hey, maybe I'll jump into that basketball market a little bit, because there's really nothing happening here, and I really
Yeah.
don't think, with the NFL and prospecting and things like that. So
Yeah, absolutely. Either way, it's going to be a class with some strong prospects. So it's not going to be bad, regardless of if NFL is good or bad. It's going to be good for
yeah.
basketball.
All right. All right, let's move on. We have PSA is opening a retail location inside Burbank Sportscards. Burbank's opening up a new location later this month. This is going to be, PSA's first in-store location, which I think personally is just a great idea,
Yep.
and I hope that they open more of these up. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know what they're, you know, accepting. I mean, this is how they're starting out. You're gonna be able to go in and submit cards and hand cards off to submit for grading. But I bet you'll be able to receive packages back at that location too, at some point, versus being sent to a home address. And I get super excited when I see PSA is going to be at a show that I'm going to, right? Because I love to hand my cards off to somebody versus packing them up and send them in the mail and be nervous for 2 days or
Well,
whatever.
your history of packaging, of course, you want to hand them off.
Yeah.
Have you talked about it on the podcast, like the recurrence of this? Because I think I've never seen it or heard it, and it's happened to you more than once. So
So
I don't know.
So somehow when I ship something USPS from
Yeah.
here to California to PSA, there must be a pond or a river that that all the stuff gets dropped into, because 3 times my packages have been returned from PSA because they've been soaked in water. Now, the first time I was so nervous because everything was wrapped, but I did not put them in a Ziploc bag.
Right.
Right. After that, when they came back, and thank God the cards were they weren't wet or anything, then every time I've sent to PSA, I put stuff in a Ziploc bag. And after the 3rd time that happened, I was like, I'm done. I'm not sending it through the post office anymore. I started sending it FedEx, because they only give you 2 choices, USPS or FedEx,
Yep.
2 addresses, right? So I just started. So the last 3 that I've sent FedEx, they've gotten there, no issues. So you pay a little more, it gets there a little faster, but if it's not being dunked in the river,
Down in the van by down. Down in a van by the
Living in a
river.
van down by the river.
Thank you. In a van down by the river. Yeah, that's where your cards are.
Yeah. So
Farley's
yeah,
got
I
them.
mean, I like bringing stuff, handing stuff off, and not only handing stuff off, but you get to know people, right? You get to meet people, and you get to ask them questions. I mean, you never, when you're sending stuff off to PSA, you really, it's hard to ask any questions to anybody, right? It's mostly through email stuff, and you know, I have an inquiring mind, right? So when I get there, I like to start talking to people and asking different questions about different, just try to get as much information as I can. And I hope they like, I know there's a spot in New Jersey, right? I could drive
Card
2
Vault.
hours and
Do Card Vault, American Dream Mall. That's where they should put it in. Just
yeah,
co-signed by Tom Brady. Throw it in there, right?
yep,
Why
yep.
not?
There we go.
Because as you were saying this, I was already thinking like New Jersey Card Vault. That should be the next spot.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, anything else before we move on from that?
No, I mean, I think it's like, I don't really think there'd be a bad thing about that, right? I think it's just kind of cool that they're doing it. Pop up
Yeah,
more locations, I guess.
yeah,
Maybe have them in larger metro areas, just so you know.
yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. PSA, sticking with PSA, choose your minimum grade.
All right, you seemed like, I think we have differing opinions on this but you can go first because
Well, I can imagine being on the receiving end at PSA to what they're going to be getting there. They're going to be getting a whole bunch of cards of people saying 10. I just want a 10 on this, right? And you know, they're going to get charged for grading the card regardless of what they choose for a minimum and if it meets it or not. And then you're just going to get your card back raw. I mean, my thought is if I'm going to pay for grading, I might as well get it encapsulated too, right? Let me decide when I get it back what I want to do with it, if I want to leave it encapsulated or unencapsulate it.
yeah, no, I would probably just like, I won't do this just because I don't think I'll have the opportunity to with how I grade stuff, but like I would just minimum 8 it. And if it's less than 8, why would you want it slabbed? I mean, unless it's PC or like vintage, sure, a 7's great, but like I'm gonna crack it out anyways, probably. So yeah, that's for me. I just don't see the point of like you. I just feel like if you're gonna get a terrible grade like that, you're telling me you'd rather them. You're gonna pay for them to send it back to you to then crack it out and possibly damage it more. I don't know.
No, I mean, I'm paying them to grade the card, so I want to know what their opinion is.
They're still gonna grade it. They just said the minimum grade wouldn't be met, so it's less.
Are they going to tell you what your minimum grade, what your grade was, or are they just going to send it back and say it didn't meet your minimum grade? I don't think they're going to go to the extra effort to say, well, it would have been a 7, but you said it's an 8, so we sent it back to you. I think you're just going to say it did not meet 8 requirements, so here's your card back. I mean,
little pushback with what you grade. What would you want to be a 7? It's a good question, right?
Yeah, well, I'm just picking a 7 over your 8.
I'm just saying though, like, come on, like,
I want a 10. I want a 10. I want a 9.
tell-
If it's an 8 or less, I don't even want it in an 8. I honestly, it depends on what the card is.
Okay,
If it's a card
you're helping my point.
yeah, it really depends on what the card is. If it's anything ultra modern that I mostly deal with, I don't want an 8. I want a 9 or a 10. I don't
So
want
what would you do if you had an 8?
I'm hoping that what I do here in the office, by looking over these cards, everything I do, that I should know what an 8 is by now.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
I've sent thousands of cards to PSA, and I've gotten them back, so I know, like I know what to look for on cards. So anything I send, it's on me. It's my fault. Like if it's coming back an 8 or less, unless this card comes back and I say, wow, I don't know how this thing got an 8, and I crack it and clean it and send it back and comes back a 9. I'm like, oh, okay, I was right. But I think those days are gone now. I really do. I think that they're being much tougher on the grading right now, because I think they're seeing so many cards come in that they just can't give out 10s to everybody. And I think that's really what it's coming down to.
That, or they're seeing so many cards, a 10 becomes more difficult because the amount that they're seeing. So like subconsciously the rigor gets like higher, right? Like,
yeah. Well,
which is it's just human nature. It makes sense. The more of something you see, the more you're going to be able to be picky of it.
Yeah. And I'm sure we have, this is a 10, just like we do, right? You and I just did this last week. We saw a card it was a downtown that had a huge space up on the top, right? And I said to you, that card would grade horrible. That up and down centering in the front's terrible. And you said, Ken, and you went and you pulled up a PSA 10 and you showed me one that had that. I pulled up a PSA 10 that did not have it. You pulled up one that had that huge space in there.
Yeah.
Right. So is it okay that we've got this massive space at the top of it? But you said we're just grading off the logo, right? And we're not grading.
Like let's talk about the card, because it is like it's definitely obvious when you look at it. It's the design. It's the Tyreek Hill 2024 downtown. And usually with the art, there's more like above the player in the background, and for Tyreek Hill, for whatever reason, there's just like the plain downtown like foil, right? Is that what you call it? Behind it, above.
Yep.
So like to see the border and the centering, like it looks horribly off center to your, like what you're saying. There's just this empty space above it. It's like, wow, this is hideous.
It's like an inch of empty space.
Yeah, for real. But you have to look at the logo, and then when I pointed that out, you could see, right? Like you could see the centering of how it would like match up. The logo and then the bottom of the image is like the imaginary like border for it. So it's weird. Yeah. And it's one of those things of just like when you grade things, it's like knowing the set, knowing the card, and it's a lot because there's so many nuances to sets and specific cards even that make things look super off center. To your credit, it does. Yeah. It's like, what the heck is this?
I get people message me all the time saying, hey, I've got this card. It's got, a dimple on it. Should I grade it? Does PSA, give you negative? Is it negative with dimple on it and stuff like that? And I tell everybody the same thing. Tell them, go find a couple PSA 10s online, right? Blow them up and look for what you have on yours to see if you see any of those on the other card. I mean, that's the best I could tell you on that, because just like we did with that card initially, when I saw that card, I said, there's no way this card would grade a 10. Right. But then you go look, and there is. So even as much as I do, learning something new every day.
Yeah, and I feel like I learned that a lot personally, but you can try to look and see, but there's a lot of things you're not going to be able to see in a slab that would, right? So it's making note of certain flaws that you see and seeing what the results are.
Yep.
And it may cost you some money, but if you continue to do it over the long run, that $20 could be way more valuable. An example is on the 2023 Optic Hollow, specifically CJ Stroud, and probably the set, there are these very faint print lines on the front of the cards that I know a lot of people felt would affect the grade. And then I would go see them in person and know that it was such a common flaw that it was kind of like just not factored in. So I got a lot of people's quote unquote grading rejects, and I would get 10s. And it was just like knowing the set and sending one off to see that it did 10 to know. And that's just one example of many things. Like another one is, here's just some free game for the grading for everyone before I give away. I'm not giving away everything. But another one that's super common is for Mosaic. On the back, you will see print lines, and it almost looks like crazy. It almost looks like a grid sometimes with how many horizontal and vertical print lines there are. But if they're just like in the clear coat, my experience, you could totally disagree with me. That's fine. I don't care. My experience is that they will still 10 unless it goes into the clear coat and you can kind of feel it with like your finger if you run it against of those print lines on the back. In the way I learned that threshold, because they vary like crazy of the indentation on the back, is by sending in a lot. And I saw which ones would 10s, which ones would 9s, which would even 8s. I remember I sent one in that had like I knew it wouldn't 10 because of how indented it was, but I wanted to know what that like the threshold was. I wanted in my mind to like get that of what is this indentation of a print line on the back going to be. It was an 8, and that's now I know. So it's just like
do you think now with PSA, do you think like that they're just going to grade everything harder, or do you think there's still that same standard?
I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I haven't noticed the grading getting harder. I really haven't, and I send out a lot of cards, so I haven't noticed it at all.
Yeah.
I think there's the narrative.
I'm still at 50%.
Yeah.
I'm still, and no matter what I send in, if I send 10, 20, 30, 50, 80 cards, it always comes back. I'm at like 54% or 52% or 50% gem rate. And no matter what, I know if I take the other, if I send in 30 cards and 15 come back 9s, if I crack those 9s out and send them back, half of them will come back 10s again. Right.
I think what we see is people have to be aware of certain sets. Like WNBA Prism has a very low gem rate. I've still gemmed like a decent bit of cards from them. But the amount of cards that I'm rejecting to grading are higher. So for me, and probably for you too, our gem rate's not really changing. But it's because our standard of what we're sending out is not changing.
Yep.
Okay. So I think that's the most important part is that standard needs to come from the person that's sending the cards out.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Because
ultimately 100%. I see one little thing on any card, it's rejected. I don't send it anything. If I see a print line, if I see a dimple, if I see a little white or something on any corner, it's not going. Where before I'd be like, I'm going to send, and some of them would gem. Now I'm like, because it's money, right? It's money. You start sending all these things out just to see what would happen, and they're all coming back 9s. I mean, it's costing money.
But you are at that point now. At one point, it was worth the money to learn that because now you're here, right? But because you're saying no, but like people won't know that until they do it.
Yeah.
So that's
you're true. It's true.
I don't know if you agree. Yeah,
100%.
You have to learn it on your own. Like you can listen and watch videos and do this and that, but like until you do it and see it, and you're not going to know. That's just my opinion.
Yep.
So yeah.
Good. All right, let's move on. We got some great questions.
Oh yeah, we do. Let me pop them up.
So we hit mailbox.
What was that?
Mailbox.
Got the mailbox. Let's see what we got here. All right. Greg Yazzo. Feels like 2024-25 NBA Prism must have some prospecting gems people are sleeping on. Seeing some ridiculously low-numbered rookies going out online. Any players you guys see as good investment, or is this year's Prism a complete pass? I definitely like some people. Alexander Sarr on the Wizards. He was a second overall pick. If you go into his advanced stats, shout out Chris Hoge. He put me onto these advanced stats. And if you go in and look at these advanced stats, it makes things a lot easier to really dissect these players. So you have him, and actually on the Wizards too, you have Bub Carrington, both really strong players that I would definitely look at. Also, like I think a lot of people, like in our TikTok brain world that we live in, we forget things. Let's not forget that Jared McCain on the 76ers, one, has a massive social like media following and presence, and also was balling out before he got hurt. Like I think Jared McCain's a buy, like just based off of that. So, Ken, I know basketball's not really your thing. Do you have any other
Well,
comments to that?
I would say our UConn guy, Castle.
Castle, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Also with him, interesting to see what happens this offseason with, like, does he get moved in a trade package? Is he still there with Wemby next year? A lot of like hype that could go with him either way. I think either way, it's probably a good situation for him hype wise.
I've heard a lot of people mention his name too, in that. So it seems like even he was rookie of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he seems like he's so expendable to that team. Like everybody's got that team moving him somewhere or doing something else than keeping him with Wemby. And I would think to myself, if I was him, I'd be like, come on, man, I just got rookie of the year and you want to send me packing?
The thing is, it's like you got Giannis. Like what's the rookie of the year when you got Giannis, a multi-time MVP, a champion, a finals MVP guy? Like,
yeah.
It's tough, right? Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
And that part of the hobby too, and even though like I don't do much with it, but that that prospecting part, which I really get into a lot with football, when it comes to like baseball, and this is now what I'm finding out, it's a lot like somewhat basketball too. It takes a while to get the player to build up a player to get to where they could be a star. Right.
Your Hendon hookers in baseball or basketball could still have time to bake.
Yeah. But it's like you buy these cars and you have to sit on them for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's like, oh God, to me, that's just painful.
To fully pop, yes. But like in basketball and baseball, there's always moments of hype that you could buy, you could sell and then rebuy in. Like it's just, you have to be locked in. You really have to be locked in.
And part of that lane is watching that sport, is really knowing what's going on with every, and if you're not watching it, then you're going to get left behind. I'm going to have to rely on other people to tell me, and that's not the lane I want to be in. The lane I want to be in, the one is I'm relying on me.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All righty. Speaking of baseball, next question from Ronnie Newkirk. 2-part question, 2 totally different. I know you guys aren't crazy baseball, but what are the views on the Topps red auto debacle? Them having the buyback with only 30% of autos being able to get rookie of the year. Other question is for someone who's not a dealer, new to the hobby and looking to flip to buy cards for PC. How do you go about doing that when dealers only buy 80% and only want to sell for 100%? Just curious if buying bulk helps or what. Love the pod, boys. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Ronnie. So for baseball, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I don't know about the Topps red auto. I know like what the red rookie logo, and that's like a buyback if they win the rookie of the year.
Yeah.
Ronnie, I apologize. Like you said, we're not crazy into baseball. I think the idea of just like these other little buyback options, I think, are good overall. But it looks like you're saying having the buyback with only 30% of autos being able to get rookie of the year. So it looks like they're limiting it. So if like, I don't know, someone with 1.8% of a chance to win rookie of the year wins rookie of the year, like the Mavericks getting the first overall pick. If that happens, then see you later for all those people holding the red logos, right? Yeah, that would kind of stink.
What's the basis behind this buyback?
Okay.
I would think that would be the chase card that I want to get and sell to somebody else. Not that I'm just, because if Topps puts a price on it to buy back, then that becomes the price of the card, right? Like they've determined what the buyback determines what the value of the card is.
Right. It's at the hobby shop, so you get the credit or cash, I believe. I don't know. But like, you're a dealer. If someone comes up to you with the $100 card, what are you paying? Like what's the value? You know what I mean? Like it depends. It depends because you have to wait for those outcomes. So like the release is going to be ahead. Like you have you remember the MVP buyback programs, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same concept of where like base cards were like $20 a piece and parallels to a certain number were 50 and they were 100 and they were 200.
Yeah.
I think it's the same process, except for this, it's like a rookie red one, and then if you hold it until they win like MVPs or Hall of Fame, there's different amounts of money you can.
But from an outsider looking in, I just think that system is broken. Like all of a sudden now you have people going to chase the cards that they could just bring back to the hobby store and get a credit. It's like the hobby store or Tops has determined what the price of that card is. So once Tops says we'll give you $50 for that card's never selling for $40, more than $40 ever again. So they've put a limit price on that card.
And after the period to buy it, it's gonna be worth, because it's like there's like a period. So like after the rookie of the year, like for a certain amount of time, that card is worth X amount of dollars. But I believe there's like a period you can sell it in. So after that, it's worth $1, right? Like, or like for real though. Like, am I wrong? Like, oh, this was worth $50 at one. No one cares anymore. Like, no one cares.
Ohtani won the MVP. I opened up the last not the last page. I opened up a baseball box and it had these certain two of these Ohtani cards in it that they were part of that buyback, and I think the cards were $30. It was either $20 or $30. Right? And somebody's like, "Oh, nice! Those are the buyback cards. They're worth $30." I'm like, "Okay." And I go to the show and I put them in my case for $30, and people are like, "Oh, you take 10, you take 12," and I'm like, "Well, it's worth 30." They're like, "Yeah, I'm not going to pay you 30 though." I'm like, "But you take the card and go to the." I'm like, "I might as well just take it to the hobby store and trade it in for the $30." And they're like,
"Well, yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, that's a good idea."
Exactly, but that's the thing. It's like I remember. It's so funny when I hung out with you and I brought that like 2-row at Mohegan that day, and I bought.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
I bought 2 of the Logo Fractor boxes from Bill and Billy, and I pulled the judge, and it was like $100 card, and I was like, wow, cool, because it was a certain parallel or whatever, and you gave me a little card stand to put it up on, and I like a 10-year-old came up. He's like, "You take 30 for that?" And I was like, "I would, but it's the buyback, so it's worth that." He goes, "Oh yeah, I was hoping you didn't know that." You know what? I appreciate the honesty, kid. Appreciate the hustle.
Take the card for 30.
Yeah, no. But yeah. Love it though. But yeah, I think overall the buyback is good.
Yeah.
Because it's something different and could give some sort, even if it's for that short period of time. I mean, what's the difference between that and then people prospecting and a prospect flaming out? Like it's gonna be this, right? It's like, it is what it is. It's something. It's something. Is it perfect? No, but it is what it is. So the other question, because I don't even remember, let me read it again.
No, it was about selling his cars to getting more money than the 80% that dealers will pay. Well, apparently the repackers are paying 88 to 95%. So there's something. There's a place you can you could sell your cards there to someone like that. Facebook groups, right? They're your cards, so you don't have.
He's talking about buying though, like to be able to sell. He's like, because he goes, just curious if buying in bulk helps. Because like with that,
read the question again. I thought he said, how do I sell my cards?
It's one question, but it kind of talks about both. So it's like, other question is for someone who's not a dealer, new to the hobby, and looking to flip to buy cards for PC.
Oh, okay.
How do you go about doing that when dealers only buy at 80 and only want to sell at 100? Just curious if buying in bulk helps or what.
Yes. Okay, I understand the question. Yeah. Yes, buying in bulk does help.
Because what you said isn't wrong. It's part of it. It's just like, I feel like there's a little bit more to it. So like, ultimately, it comes down to people and people skills, I think. Is like you have to find someone who's going to be willing to work with you to buy in bulk. And when you buy in bulk, you don't always buy everything that's good. Like, and that's part of it too. And then you may be stuck with certain boxes like I have here of buying collections that I don't know what to do with and don't have an outlet for. But they're essentially just, maybe I'll have
There'll be
like
toys for your son.
that, or like Geo from Sports Card Nonsense, just have a little bonfire with them. I don't know, but yeah, buying in bulk definitely is gonna give you an option, because it's also a convenience for the person selling out all of this. And sometimes when I'm buying collections, it's almost like I'm like a cleaning service for them, just taking the boxes so their wife isn't yelling at them anymore. But yeah, all right. Thank you, Ronnie. Next question from Tom G on Instagram. What are some creative ways to display cards at card shows, ideally to maximize table space? Just going to hand this over to you.
Yeah, I've done so many things through the years to maximize table space, where I've had more things on tables that I would show up with the whole back of my SUV full and fit it all on a 6-foot table, at a show. But what I found is less is better at a card show, because if you've got too much stuff on your table, that people will just miss your stuff unless they want to stand there and really look over everything you have. So I used to like to use a deep case. The old used to get them off of, and I don't even know if they still sell them on Amazon, but they were deep. They were like, I think they're like 5.5 or 6 inches deep, right? Where you could take cards and instead of just laying them down, I would put these foam things in and prop them up. So when you came, the cards were actually facing you in the case. So it would made it easier for people to look at. It took more time and more setup and things like that. But to be 100% honest, I just try to put less cards in the case. I like to spread them out, so when people just look at them, I know we're talking about utilizing, when you're talking about utilizing the table spaces, getting as much on there to be creative, but I think less is better.
I was just gonna say, like, that's the case, but like less is more, I think, is valuable to that point. Is like not even being a dealer, just hearing you say that. Like, if I'm walking up to a table and I see, like, it's first off, it's impressive when people have like all these crazy cards that are like on top of each other in the show. You know what I mean? Like, but it's also like, this is overwhelming. I'm not even gonna try to buy this. Like,
you can't see the grade on any of the cards, and you can't see the serial number on the graded cards as well.
Yep. So cool. Any more to add to that? Or I'm not even going to add, because you're going to know more than.
Yeah. No, I'm good.
Brian Harris, shout out Brian, part of the our Dynasty League. So shout out to Brian. How are you preparing for the National? Normally, I'd be buying raw and sending to grade right now to get back before end of July, but may not be possible. Has PSA's delay made you change your strategy? You said, example, take more raw cards or use quicker services like SGC or CGC. This is probably a you question too.
Yeah. If you've got some great cards, which I've got some great cards coming in and should have been here today, but I wasn't here when FedEx showed up with my cards from Topps and Panini and PSA. I'm waiting for all kinds of stuff. I'm going to use a faster service. I'm going to spend a little more at PSA, a 10-day. They have PSA has a special going on now. I think it was the $79. That's $59 right now, or $59. That's $39, something like that. It's like a 20-day, 15-day thing. I'm going to use a faster service for that. But I have a different outlook planning, and I just talked about this on my solo on Sunday. I've set up at the National year after year after year. Last year was the first year I didn't set up at the National. I had a lot of cards, and I was disappointed trying to sell some of those cards at the National to people who were set up there. So the cards I am bringing with me there are going to be more trade night type cards. And I'm not going there to sell cards to dealers at the National. It's going to be more of a social experience for me this year, going out there. It's not going to be so much about selling and buying at the show. Although if I find the cards, I have a list of hard to find cards that I'd like to buy, but I think most of my transactions are going to happen at trade night. So Raw cards are okay. Um, the only downfall with raw cards is when you're at a trade night, the lighting is usually not that great, and it's hard to really look at conditions of raw cards. So I kind of stick to graded stuff. Because I feel a little better. I feel a little more confident about what I'm buying. But that's who I am. That's what I like to do. Um, Zip, what do you got?
I am not going to the national. I will just be continuing to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
If I could speak in hypotheticals if you like. If I was, I agree with you because my more limited experience, but still valid experience at the national is that these trade nights, people are on a level playing field and don't care if you're a dealer by day. The night, totally different, right? Like I don't care if you have a table. We're here at the trade night. You're just as good as me, right? Like that's what it is.
Yep.
And people will pay more fair. I remember I was the Wolfpack. You got throwback. You guys had that trade night out there. And I was sitting at a table and I just had some cards out and people were coming up there, not even looking at comps. Probably had that nice. It wasn't an open bar, was it? No, it was a cash bar.
It was a cash bar. Yeah.
Guy must have had a lot of cash. He came up, he's like, boom, 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 just naming out numbers for it. I was like, sure, 120% comps. These are all yours. So, people get the drinks flowing at trade night there at National and they'll just start spending. Not saying that ultimately happens all the time, but like definitely a better chance than selling at the National, because what happens at the National, I think, is people, like you mentioned, people find these cards that they can't find anywhere else. And they're like, oh, screw it. This is my chance. I need cash. And they'll take these deals from dealers to get the cash to buy these cards that they want for their collection. So if I'm a dealer, why would I pay strong when I have all these people who are just going to be willing to liquidate to get what they want? And I get both sides of it. It doesn't mean it's predatory. It doesn't mean it's anything like that. It's literally just people with different interests, right?
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying is the trade night's the way to go. And also this idea to sell at the National is glorified and not it's not like, it may make the experience somewhat better, different at National, but like financially it's probably not like, you shouldn't just base it off of, let me make sure I get all these for the National, when you could sell it.
Well, it's different too. Like someone like me who is setting up there, I build an inventory all year long that I'm going to set up and sell those cards at the National, right? So this year, not knowing, being on the fence about getting a table, I've started building an inventory, knowing I'm not setting up there. Now I've secured a spot at the West Coast in Burbank. Right. So now I know I will bring that inventory to there to set up, because that's where I'm most comfortable, selling my cards, is behind the table.
I just don't think like to sell a card at a show when you can get a better or the same price earlier. I don't see why you wouldn't do it, because the way there's so many cards, and I've talked about this with a few people lately. It's just like, there's so many cards to buy. Like, don't be afraid to sell whenever, even if it's not the idea you had planned in your head. At least my opinion. I don't know what you think about that. I mean, I guess it's different because you need inventory for shows, but like you mentioned on your solo podcast, you got wiped out by someone who's paying super strong in bulk. Like, what are you going to you're going to hold back so you have inventory when you're probably not getting but like, it goes on more than just that one incident, I think.
And knowing that too, having that inventory that they're looking for, knowing that, it's easier for me, right, to pick up the phone and call that person and say, hey, look, I just got 100 cards back from PSA. You want to do a deal, because it's easier to sell them all to that one person than go and sell them one card at a time somewhere else. Right.
And then you're going to have more cash to just buy more. Like, because like there's so many cards, it doesn't matter. You're always going to be able to buy more.
Yeah.
So that's just my thing, is like holding out for a certain thing doesn't align with me. But like if you're setting up at the National, that's different. You want inventory. I get that.
Yep.
But I don't think Brian is. And you're not setting up this year, right?
Me?
Right. Yeah.
You're not talking to Brian now. You're talking to me.
Talking to you, Ken. You're not setting up.
No. Right. I just talked to them a few days ago, and it's or actually last week, and no, I'll be on for next year. It's just not going to happen this year.
Yeah. So like for you though, like aside from Brian, I guess me kind of asking you, are there like cards you're holding for the National? Like, and is it like for trade bait, or is it like, is there a reason you're holding it for them rather than selling before?
Well, I think certain cards are going to be much more popular. Every year come the National, there's going to be some football players everyone's chasing.
Yep.
So there's going to be a run up on those cards. I think Caitlin Clark cards, or people are still going to be chasing those. I'm not saying I'm leaving everything home. I'm going to bring a decent amount of inventory, but things that I'm willing to move at trade night that I want to maybe upgrade to a card that I may want to put in my case at Burbank, 3 weeks later,
Okay.
that type of thing. So in my mind, as I'm getting, if I'm find a card that I might want to buy to put, build an inventory for another show, that's fine. But my goal going out there is I have a list of cards I'm looking for. Just a list of cards that I've always been, that I say, if I can find them on my eBay, my saved searches and all those things that go out there, if I can find them, if the price is reasonable, I buy them. If not, I just keep looking. I have some sets that I'm trying to build, and some of those cards too that I'll look for. But
Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're close, right?
Yeah. I'm halfway there on the Hunger Games. Yeah.
I hope you find those, because that's probably going to be one of the toughest finds, right?
Well, you know what? So people talk about building a set. Sometimes it takes 20 years, 30 years to build a set. And it was worth every minute of it. And I'm beginning to know how that feels.
Yeah. All right. Next question from Joe Crane. Also, Joe, shout out. Also in the Dynasty League. When will NFL pricing peak? Is there still time to buy and get the seasonality bump with NBA, NHL playoffs, and MLB new releases like Bowman?
Well, historically for football, they'll start to rise the end of May, beginning of June, and there should be a steady rise to peak just before the National. Usually around I think the Chantilly show is the last weekend of June, and then the Dallas show is right after July 4th, the weekend after July 4th. And I think that's probably your peak, or what I've seen historically as the peak. Some cards may go up a little more, and it'll just be from news and hype or things like that for football. I mean, news coming out of training camp, it could go the opposite way too. Somebody gets injured, somebody gets hurt, their cards are dropping out. Good news is this guy's going to be a starter and he's got great chemistry with this wide receiver, or a trade's made or something like that. That could cause even, a bigger bump up. But there's going to be those 1, 2, 3 players every year at the National. Everybody's chasing that. Those cards are still have a chance to go higher because people are just trying to buy those cards.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I feel like the peak goes a little longer, and maybe it's just me. I feel like the peak goes like almost to like, or maybe not the peak, but it just like it kind of sustains to like the first week or two of the season still.
Well, I think
it gets dicey. It gets dicey.
Yeah, I think it peaks. I really think it peaks right before the National. Last year we saw the prices start to come down, like all over the eBay and Card Ladder and all those pricing. We saw the prices start to drop a little right before the National, and I don't know if that's market manipulation too, right? I don't know if there's certain things that are going on that are causing right before a big show like that, of course, people are going to want to try to drive a price down,
Yeah.
so they could buy those cards cheaper, at a bigger show. Well,
Yeah. And to the second half of the question about NBA, NHL playoffs, you got to be really careful of the players you're buying because it could just fall out of the bottom on you. So there could still be time to buy, but it's very risky. It's speculation on who advances to the next round, and saw Tatum who gets hurt and Curry who gets hurt and doesn't get hurt. Not that Curry's market's going anywhere, but like you understand what I'm saying for the short term. So it's just being very selective. And then MLB new releases like Bowman. For that, it's really just going to be who are the hot prospects. That's who's going to be selling hot on release day, and then they'll peak on their call up. So that's for Bowman. The last question, also from Brian Harris. Separate question for Ken. Are you disappointed and or surprised with the quick drop in Prism PSA 10 Caitlin cards? Because of terrible quality, PSA 10s are hard to come by, but people keep selling for less. Other than the Prism Silver, there have been some steep drops in price.
Yeah, I had to read that all the way through because I know the Prism Silver is still selling very well.
Yep.
And the non-silver is just being graded. And of course, people are coming back with 10s. I think if I send 4 in, I'll get 2 10s out of it. And yeah, I was surprised that it came down, but not surprised because I just think the card is overgraded. I think everybody's grading them right now. I just had a conversation with somebody else talking about Caitlin Clark cards, and they kind of asked me the same question, like, what's the play on those? And my thought with Prism is anything numbered with her and Prism, I'll grade and I'll hold right now and I'll watch the market. But anything non-numbered, I think it's just so overproduced that the market, because so many cards are coming to market, the prices, it's the race to zero now, right? So if somebody's got to buy it now for $99, the next person's going to be at 97, and the next person's going to be at 95 and 91 and 90 and 8. It's like everybody's just trying to sell their card as fast as they can. One thing though that was really interesting that I will mention is the logo Prism, the Dick's Sporting Goods exclusive. When they first came out, throughout the WNBA groups and things like that, everybody was complaining, oh, I hate the look at this. They really ruined this card, and on and on and on. And I just felt that it was just something that nobody was going to want. But now all of a sudden you realize how limited they were. And you see the value of those cards are really, those logo silver Prisms are really starting to go up. Even the boxes, even just to buy those boxes are 2x the price of the ones that the blasters that come with the ice Prisms. So that's another kind of sneaky chase right there. If you can find logo Prisms, I've been trying to buy some up, and they're expensive, and people know what they have, and they're not letting them go too cheap. But if you can find them at the right price, I would suggest just buying them and hanging on to them, because I think they're more limited. They were much more limited than the standard Prism.
So I know that was geared towards you, but considering the amount of Caitlin Clark cards I've graded and dealt with in the last year, I feel like I should probably step in. So let's talk about the Prism base. They sell raw for $15 to $20, and in a PSA 10, just the Prism 22, sells from $150 to $175. I'll do that all day over and over again. If you don't like the profit of $110 if it sells at $150 after the grading for $20,
are you talking about the base Prism?
Talk about the base Prism.
I think they're selling less than that.
I have Card Ladder pulled up looking at them. The Caitlin Clark, the 145, the last sale was $250 base, and it sells for $15 raw. The last PSA 10 base on May 13th, so today, did 175.
Okay.
I mean, listen, it's a base card. I will do it all day. $20 to 175. We're putting in these quarterbacks at way smaller margins that are paralleled. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing.
I don't know why. I don't know why that seems so high to me. I thought they were closer to $100. Base
Not
Prism.
seeing that.
Oh no. Okay. I'm looking here.
I mean,
yeah.
For a base card, I feel like that's pretty awesome. No, I mean, the retail non-numbered parallels have dropped significantly. Like Blue Velocities, like when they first started, we're doing like 800. Now they're doing like 2 or 3. But like, for the base card, I think those margins are crazy, and I will just churn out as many as I can because that's.
I think I have like 15 of them out at PSA right now that I'm hoping for the best on.
I mean, that's a crazy percentage, right? Like,
yeah.
Also, it's a base card, so what do you want it to do? Like, I don't know. I really don't know. And I know I have 10s of both, so I have a 10 of the 145. The variation is a crazy low gem rate. So, yeah. But for someone, I know it was geared for you, and I know like I've dealt my fair share of Caitlin Clark's. Yeah, I'll take all the base ones. I'm sure Ken you'd rather defer to me, right? I can buy all the base cards at $15 a piece.
They know who to call.
Mm-hmm. Ghostbusters, not you. But yeah, that's it for questions this week.
Nice. This weekend, I am setting up twice. Saturday, I'm setting up Yorktown, New York. That's right, Yorktown. Setting up the Titan card show. On Saturday and Sunday, I'm doing the New Britain show here in Connecticut. So if you're out and about, you're there, stop by and see me.
Nice.
What are you doing? You doing anything this weekend?
I am trying to set up collections to buy. Always. That's what I'm doing. I think I'm going to really not go to too many card shows. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. It'll be a stay, as you like to say, I'm going to stay in my lane.
Stay in your lane. Hey, you came last weekend. You did some damage last weekend at Causeway in your short period.
I did not do bad. No, I didn't do bad in the time I was there. I sold a lot. I bought some stuff, but yeah, driving 2 hours in the rain to do that, I'd rather just not. So that's just me, and that was weather dependent. But yeah, I'm probably just gonna try to set up some collections. I bought one today. Hopefully, I can buy another 2 for the week. That'd be nice. So.
All right. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. We will be back next week with a brand new episode.
All righty. See you then.
Take care.
See ya.